All right, hello everyone and welcome to a new video. If you're new here, my name is Mohammed. We continue our training and preparation for Elastic Certified Engineering exam, and today with a new topic. We will discuss and see the cross-cluster search. All right, with that being said, let's jump to the documentations. Or before, let me explain what's the cross-cluster search, right? So in Elastic, we have the cluster, and the cluster can be one or more than one node, right? And your cluster, maybe, I don't know, you have an or you're working in an international company, and you have, let's say, different regions, right? Let's say you have an environment or a cluster deployed in Europe, and another in USA, and another one in Asia, right? So, and for a reason or another, let's say you want to generate a monthly report where you compare, let's say, between all the three, or you do something similar, but the main reason is you need the data from all the three clusters, right? What we can do is the cross cluster search is the solution, or is the case here. So we can, from one cluster, we query the cluster itself, or we query in another cluster, which whatever is cluster A, B, whatever the cluster, you can send the query and you get the response, and then you build your report, you build your visualization, you do your analysis, and so on and so forth, right? So now let's go to the documentation. So for the supported API so far from the cross-cluster search, what you can do, you can run a search query, you can run async search, multiple search, search templates, all the different search features, right? And some others also, for example, here field compatibility, or if you have a Painless script that you want to run, you can run it across cluster or across other clusters. And finally, we have the resolve index. This is what we have in GA, and in the preview, we have the EQL, SQL, vector task search, and finally ESQL or Elasticsearch querying language, or ESQL. Now, what's the required? Like how we do? So the first thing is we have to add the settings, right? We can't do it directly from the dev tools or from the command line, or using the API to add it directly from here, where you specify the IP address of at least one of the nodes in the other clusters, right? In the cross clusters. So here we have multiple nodes, and here we have multiple nodes. Here we have multiple nodes. We need at least an IP address of one node. Then we come here and we add it. Here is gonna be cluster 1. Here's gonna be cluster 2. Here's gonna be cluster 3. So this is the first way to do it. The other way, you come here to stack management. Let me zoom a little bit. So here you see cross cluster replication. So here you create, you connect, or you have, you create the remote cluster, right? Here you add the cluster. So you click here on, sorry, here not cross cluster replication, but it's the remote cluster. You come here to the remote cluster and you give it, I don't know, cluster USA, for example, and here you give the IP, right? So you give the IP, then you give the port you have, right? So if it is like here, usually we go just one node, or if you want to have more nodes, then you give more nodes, right? So here you click next, and here also you configure the security. So if you want, if you are using the same CA certificate or certificate authority for all the clusters, then you can easily upload the certificate of the cluster A here, or USA cluster. You upload it here. If not the case, you can come here and let's go to, yes, here in the API keys, right? And you click on create API key, and here you want to use the API key for cross cluster. Here you give it a name, USA cluster, API, for example, then you give it a name, right? So here also you have more permissions, like if you want to specify the name of the indices that you will allow the other cluster to run search query on, or to also to replicate, right? So you can like you have here more permission. If you want to add more metadata, also you can add. And also for the API, as any other API, if you can give an expiration, let's say this will be expired after 1 year or 2 years, or whatever the value that we want. It's not recommended to give it an expiration without an expiration date, but it's up to you. So here you generate the API. And here you will be able, or you will have the API. Then you come here again to the cluster, the remote cluster. Here we said cluster USA, and here just random IP. I don't have a remote cluster. This is just for a demo. Then here I said, okay, I have the API, right? And yeah, the only thing with the API key. So for the exam is gonna be 8.15. So it will be supported, but in the production environment, it should be more or above 8.10. So if you click here, it will redirect you to the documentation. Then you add the API, then you add the remote cluster, and then so here it will generate an error, and this is expected. But in the exam or in your prod environment or dev environment, you will be able to see the connection. Now this is the first thing. Now let's say you configure it, everything is good. Now how to run the cross-cluster search. So here it's gonna be really easy. So usually when we run the search query on our cluster, we just put the name of the index and we run the search. Now if we want to run it on the remote cluster, we said we are in Europe and we want to run the query on the cluster US. So here you just add the name of the cluster and before the index here, like this. So if you want to run it cross one cluster, or also if you want to run it cross multiple clusters, as we can show here. So here we run it locally. Here we run it on the cluster one, and here, as you can see, we run it across the cluster two. And finally, you will get the answer like this. So from the local, it's gonna be like this. Is we show you or highlight the local like this, and you will be able to see the results coming from the local cluster. From the first cross cluster or remote cluster is gonna be here, and the other one also is gonna be here, with all the details we need, like the information, the number of document, how long it took, and so on and so forth. Right? With that being said, we get to the end of this video. Let me know in the comment section if you have any question, and we'll see you in the next one.